got that thing rolling? I'll be mad if I get done. It's not recorded. Okay. Well, thanks for everybody for being here today. If you have ever seen me pull up to church in my car, you've probably noticed, besides my many bumper stickers, I also have a personalized license plate that reads, "It just is." It's the same as the more common phrase, "It is what it is." I find the words, "it just is," to be simpler and more spacious and therefore spiritual, and something I strive for in life. But what does it mean? It just is means to let go, to go with the flow, to open up, and to accept. Just as the Bible, I forgot my spiritual reading. Am I not? I'm going to start over. Okay. All right. This is my first time doing this. I swear to God, it's doing this for me. All right. My scripture reading today is from Romans 14:13. Therefore, let us stop passing judgment on one another. Instead, make up your mind not to put any stumbling block or obstacle in the way of a brother or sister. My non-biblical reading are two quotes by Wayne Dyer, who's a self-help author and motivational speaker. Just two simple quotes. The first one, "Judgments prevent us from seeing the good that lies beyond appearances." And the second quote, "Judging a person does not define who they are, it defines who you are." If you have ever seen me pull up to church in my car, you'll probably notice, besides my many bumper stickers, I also have a personalized license plate that reads, "It just is." It's the same as the more common phrase, "It is what it is." I find the words, "it just is," to be simpler and more spacious, and therefore spiritual, and something that I strive for in life. But what does it mean? It just is means to let go, to go with the flow, to open up, and to accept. Just as the Bible verse today referenced, we do this by not putting up obstacles or stumbling blocks in front of others or ourselves. I used to live behind a rock in the river, letting my attitude clog me up and weigh me down. And whether I placed the rock there or someone else did, our goal in life should be not to create obstacles. And if there are obstacles, we need to go around them and to just go with the river. And the best way to achieve this is not to judge. So what is judgment? Judgment can be defined as the mental ability to understand something, form an opinion, and reach a decision. Now this doesn't sound bad, right? Well, my sermon is regarding judgment when it is used negatively, when it is a detriment to our life. We do need some judgment, such as in deciding not to do drugs, not to drink and drive, or when to best pull out in traffic. Gabrielle Bernstein in the book Judgment Detox put it like this, quote, "I learned we don't have to give up judgment altogether. In many cases, we need it. We need to discern what feels safe and what doesn't. It's not about what to eat, who to date, or which model of car to drive. In fact, it's more useful to think of these acts as discernments or personal choices. We can use logic and intuition to discern what feels right for us without being judgmental. It's the habit of condemning and criticizing we must let go of." As a society, we not only talk about the weather, but we judge it, right? On a day that's 25 degrees, we may say, "It's not a nice day today." But who said 25 degrees isn't nice? Why attach a judgment? Is it cold? Sure. But why does cold have to be bad to signify bad weather? Why can't we just state the facts with no judgments and say, "Today is 25 degrees"? When we see the weather as bad, we often choose to stay inside because of it. But what about going outside and having a new experience despite the weather? We can go for a walk and benefit by getting fresh air, exercise, and relaxation. We might run into somebody we know and have a great conversation. Or we might run into someone we have never met and have a positive encounter. If we let our judgments control us and close us off, there is so much we miss. Now, judging others is obviously worse than judging the weather. So what are some ways we judge other people? This is when it's
Appearances. Appearances.
Appearances, exactly. We judge
Number
people
one.
by appearances. Any other ideas?
What kind of car they drive.
Right, well, yeah, yeah,
Lately, it's by their personal opinions, so I think that I agree with.
yeah. Personal opinions, car they drive,
Things they say.
appearances, things they say,
The way they parent their kids.
the way they parent their children, yep.
Things they believe in.
Things they believe in, their belief system. Exactly. So there's a lot of ways that we judge people. We sometimes judge people by their appearance, which was brought up. Someone can be fat, skinny, ugly, or we can judge others by their personality traits or behavior, calling them loud or quiet, or worse yet, we can change loud to obnoxious and quiet to timid, which sounds more judgmental. These are all words that can get in the way of finding out who someone truly is, thus creating an obstacle. If we understand that people are people, we can let them in and make a connection. Sometimes we judge others by their actions. A good example is people who have fertilized and finely manicured lawns who expect their neighbors to uphold these same high standards. I have two good friends, both named Nancy, right here, who instead of this type of lawn, have loads of native flowers in their yards. One of them doesn't even have a lawn, and therefore are not appreciated by some of their neighbors. People who see their flowers as weeds and my friends as lazy and uncaring. These people are putting up obstacles instead of getting to know my friends. If they got to know their stories, they would find there is a purpose, which is to have an environmentally friendly and pollinator-friendly garden. If they talked, they might even find they have things in common. But this requires opening up and looking past their judgments. With time and intention, they may come to find that my friends, the people without finely manicured lawns, are good people. In August 2023, I went on a Sierra Club backpacking trip in Oregon, where I hiked around Mount Hood on the Timberline Trail for 5 days. Not counting my friend Jody, the other 10 people on the trip were strangers, whom I met for the first time the night before we started our hike. Everyone who knows me knows I ask a lot of questions, especially when I am in a new situation with new people. There was a woman named Laura on the trip who I asked a series of questions upon meeting. Why did you choose your backpack? Don't you find it too small? Do you like attaching so much of your stuff to the outside of your pack? Doesn't all that stuff get in your way? How come you wear hiking shoes instead of hiking boots? Well, I guess Laura felt uncomfortable with my questions because she suddenly blurted out that I was intrusive. I know. I, of course, felt terrible and didn't mean to upset her. However, I felt she made an unfair judgment of me, but I didn't hold it against her. I didn't judge her back, which often happens when someone is judged. They strike back. On the last day of the trip, as we were walking, and I, of course, was still asking questions, Laura called me inquisitive. I couldn't help but see the irony. On day 1, she called me intrusive, and on day 5, inquisitive. And yet I was the same person for those 5 days. So what happened? Laura got to know me and accept me, so her judgment on the last day was less harsh than on the first. She could have let her judgment close herself off and dominate her mood, adversely affecting her entire trip. I also could have let her judgment adversely affect my mood and my experience. Instead, we both let go of the obstacle in front of us and made a connection. After I got home from the trip, I got to thinking that maybe Laura initially thought I was judging her by asking her so many questions. And that's something that I will have to be careful of in the future. Was I judging her, even in the slightest? Judgment brings judgment, which brings more judgment. It closes doors. In this case, it didn't, but it could next time, because sometimes we don't get a second chance. Last October, I went on an artist retreat where I met a woman named Anne, who's also here today. One night, a bunch of us were sitting around talking about the virtues of hip-hop. My friend Nick, who was there, is not only a lover of hip-hop, but he is also a hip-hop artist and MC. After a while, Anne blurted out that hip-hop pushes her, pokes her in an aggressive way that makes her not want to listen to it, and therefore, she doesn't like it. She was devaluing hip-hop without giving it a chance. She chose to close herself off to the possibilities it could give her, perhaps a new perspective on life, a deeper understanding of the human condition, or at least to those creating it. Nick could have gotten defensive and argumentative and either shut down the conversation or try to tell her she was wrong. He could have judged Anne because he felt judged, but he didn't. Much like I didn't judge Laura after she judged me. Before the weekend was over, Nick even made Anne a playlist of his favorite hip-hop songs for her to listen to. He looked past her judgment to present her with the opportunity to find out more about something he felt passionate about. He didn't let her judgment get in the way of his trying to make a connection. Anne listened to the playlist, and after about a week, she let both Nick and I know how she felt. It turns out Anne still doesn't like hip-hop. But at least she tried. At least she opened herself up to something new and stripped away the judgment of it being bad or not worthy. We can dislike something without judging. I think she came to realize that just because we don't understand what someone is saying and where they are coming from, just because we can't relate to someone's life doesn't make it wrong. It just is their life. It just is. Last fall, I went to an AAUW dinner, which stands for American Association of University Women, where Racine Circuit Court Judge Christian Cafferty was the guest speaker. For the last 3 years, she has been working in the juvenile court system, which, as you can imagine, can be a tough gig. It requires a lot of empathy and compassion. And the only real way for her to achieve this is by withholding judgment to the children that she finds herself dealing with and to the parents of these children, whom she also deals with. She told us it's all about knowing someone's story. If you know their story, you are less likely to judge them. Judge Cafferty said it's too easy to see kids who skip school, who vandalize buildings or steal things as bad kids who deserve severe punishment. And if these kids hear our criticism, our judgment, it could be an obstacle in their life because they may choose to become the very people we are judging them to be, instead of who they have the potential to truly be. So we must be careful. What we need to be asking ourselves each time is, what is this kid's story? Maybe this kid's dad is in prison. Maybe this kid's mom is struggling with drug abuse. Maybe this kid is homeless. If children don't have a stable environment and don't feel safe, valued, or loved, it's no wonder they act out. Instead of judging a child's actions, let's instead look at the child's situation. In this way, we are less likely to judge. It's all about being open so you can know their story and accept what is. In December, I started volunteering at the Humane Society, where my job is cat care, which basically involves giving cat food and water, emptying their litter box, cleaning their cage, and checking on their well-being. To become a volunteer, you are required to watch 2 videos. The first is specific to the job you're volunteering for, and the second video is about ideas important to the mission of the Humane Society, which have to do with withholding judgment. There are often people who come into the Humane Society to surrender an animal. It's so easy to judge them in this instance, right? Like saying, what kind of person would give their pet away? What is your problem? Would you give your children away? And yet we don't know these people's situation. Maybe they found out they were allergic to cats or dogs. Maybe they can no longer financially take care of their pet due to a loss of a job. Maybe it's their parent's cat and their parent died and they already have animals and can't handle another. Just like the kids who act out and commit crimes, there are many reasons people surrender their pets. When they do, it doesn't mean they enjoy doing so or that it is easy. If we allow ourselves to be open and accept what is, we can hopefully refrain from judgment, even if we don't know their story. It's always best to assume the best and to stay positive, which makes us less likely to judge. The "it just is" on my license plate doesn't mean that I have it all figured out. Instead, it serves as a reminder of how to be and what I must keep working on. I had to learn how not to judge everything in every situation in my life, starting with myself. I also judged others. I wasn't as accepting and empathetic as I would have liked. I started to witness how my judgments made me feel, and right away I could see my life wasn't flowing. Judgment made me feel sad and disconnected. As I stated earlier, there was an obstacle in front of me. But what I didn't say is that I was the one who put it there. It was my own fault. So I went to therapy years ago to get rid of obstacles. I wanted to become a better person. One day I told my therapist I thought we were just using each other. That I was using her to feel better and she was just using me to practice her expertise and prove what a great therapist she was. She obviously still had her work cut out with me if that was my attitude. And boy, was I the queen of bad attitude. Judgment often comes from having a bad attitude. As Gabrielle Bernstein says in her book, Judgment Detox, one way you know you're in judgment and not discernment is that you don't feel good. Instead, you feel defensive, fearful, or under attack. I certainly felt all those things, which is why I judged my therapist-client relationship. I should have just accepted it for what it was. One person needing help and the other one helping. Two people working together for a common purpose. But I didn't work well with others at the time. Instead of going into therapy willingly and like a normal person, there I go judging again, I went in with my guard up, with hesitation and suspicion, and afraid to be vulnerable. All this created an obstacle for me, and therefore took much longer to achieve the desired results for my mental health. Thankfully, neither my therapist nor I gave up on each other or the therapeutic process. And it turned out to be one of the most impactful relationships in my life. But it was only when I stopped judging what was happening, when I stopped judging her, only when I opened up and accepted that it just is, did the process work and get through to me. Once I was able to step away from my judgment and witness how it made me feel, I could truly understand how much it had been blocking my happiness. And I learned that when we judge others, it is ultimately about our own negativity and insecurities than it is about the other person. I still make mistakes, and unfortunately I probably always will, but hopefully I won't make as many mistakes or any of great magnitude. I am up for the It Just Is challenge, and I hope all of you are too. For only when we refrain from judgment and accept what is, are we truly open and able to connect, causing our spirits to become free. Amen.